The upcoming indie game Paralives has officially announced a release date for December 8th of this year, and this is big news for fans of The Sims and other cozy games. But many players are still worried about the devs' announcement last year that Paralives will never have paid DLC, only free expansions. Let's talk about why players are worried and how a game like Paralives could support itself without paid DLC. To understand where players are coming from, we have to think about the current landscape for life simulation games, because fans are used to paying heavily for add-ons and other bonus content for these types of games. The Sims 4 is the obvious example, with over $1,400 in paid DLC and 95 packs and kits available for purchase. So part of the shock around Paralives saying they'll never have paid DLC, I think, is because we're so used to paying for this type of content. Now, the second big reason is having no paid DLC raises the question of how they're going to support this game in the long term. Because games like The Sims don't have a win condition, playstyles like legacy gameplay are hugely popular. So players want a game that they can stick with for a long time. So when Paralives says they'll never charge for expansions, players wonder whether they're really in it for the long haul, or if it might become similar to other games like Animal Crossing New Horizons. This game was huge in 2020. I am one of many people who played hours on my couch during the pandemic. It got some great free updates over the next couple of years, but then Nintendo stopped releasing updates for the game. Many players moved on to other games because it no longer felt new or fresh or exciting. But there are games that have taken a slower, more intentional free update approach and have done so really successfully. Stardew Valley is a great example. It's also a cozy life sim, started as a solo dev project, and is now supported by a small indie team. Since its release in 2016, they've released 6 major free expansions. Now, over 8 years, that's not a ton of updates, but with the amount of content added and the overall low price point of the base game, in my opinion, those updates are absolutely worth waiting for. Something else to consider is that DLC for Paralives might look different than what we're used to. With a game like The Sims, we're used to DLC that includes core features, things like pets, weather, relationship dynamics, whereas Paralives plans to include those features in their core game. So what we think of as expansion packs could actually look quite different for Paralives. We know the base game is shipping with one open world town, so maybe an expansion would include a vacation world that leverages the same game mechanics but gives your parafolk a new setting that they could explore. Another benefit of a possible slower update cadence, and this one is not talked about enough, but it's mods. When we think about the thriving mod community for The Sims, a major challenge that they're faced with is that The Sims 4 is still undergoing frequent, large updates because they're releasing DLC on such a frequent cadence. The Paralives devs have committed to supporting a mod community since early in the game's development. So if Paralives had larger, less frequent updates, we could have mods that are more stable, less prone to breakage, and not need to update our mods every single month. I don't know about you guys, but it's starting to feel like a full-time job. A thriving modding community also helps keep the game relevant for much longer. A strong modding community allows for new content and new gameplay to be added far beyond what the devs can do alone. But how can a game actually sustain itself without paid DLC? The reality is many games have different pricing models, and there's more than one way to keep a game supported without charging for DLC. Patreon is one example, and Paralives is actively using it. Fans fund the game through monthly donations, and Paralives currently has thousands of patrons donating each month to support the dev team. On top of that, there's also sales of the game itself. Paralives will be a pay-to-play game, so that will help fund development of things like future free expansions. Now, a question and a concern is whether the Paralives team will continue using Patreon after the game's launch. And even if they do, will players continue to donate to it after they've purchased the game? So yes, there is some risk, but as we mentioned, there are success stories of games using this model and building a thriving fan base while doing so. The Paralives team also has something with their community that The Sims has regrettably lost in the last few years, which is trust. Other creators have talked about this, but it really is true. The Paralives team seems to have an earnest desire to build a life simulator in a different way. And I think one of the frustrations they're keying on is players who spent hundreds of dollars on games that are fundamentally kind of broken. Now, it might not mean much in a world where so much comes down to the bottom line, but I do believe that the Paralives team wants to provide value for the fans in both their time and their wallet. Now, you can call me naive if you want, but that's my hunch after following this game for 6 years, and I guess we'll see. But I really want to know, what do you think? How do you feel about the free expansions announcement? And now that we're getting closer to the game's release, what do you think free expansions might look like for Paralives? Let me know in the comments. I can't wait to chat with you about it. And as always, thanks for watching.